Hello everyone, my name's Rejera, and today I'm gonna do something a little different. Today I'm actually going to talk about why I really like Risk of Rain. And I think this is gonna start off a little series. Whenever I find a game that I really enjoy, or something about it that I really like, or I find interesting, I'm just gonna throw it in here and make a video explaining the details of why I really like this game. Now, Risk of Rain, I've already shown a playthrough and discussed the basics of the gameplay on a different video of mine, and I'll put that video in the description below. But I want to talk about what makes this game interesting. Risk of Rain is an action rogue-lite, which mixed with a platformer. So, an action roguelite platformer. The roguelite brings in certain elements that really change the gameplay, and I think make it a prime example of why roguelites can be good, and what aspect of a roguelite to focus on in order for it to be good. First, I want to talk about some of the other stuff that Risk of Rain does really well before I hit the main point, I should say. I had to change the controls so I can actually move around. Anyway, so first off, Risk of Rain's atmosphere is amazing. The art, in my personal opinion, is fantastic, and it really gives that atmosphere of isolation. Your character on screen is just honestly really small, and you're in a really big level in a really big world, and it just makes that feeling of isolation. It just makes that concrete. It gives you that feeling. It really makes you feel like you're alone on a planet, being just chased down and hunted by monsters, and you're just trying desperately to escape. It really gives you that survival sense, I guess. That atmosphere of survival. And the music is fantastic. Honestly, the music, this is probably one of the games that I would just listen to the soundtrack of alone, without actually playing the game, and I don't really do that often. And the visuals and the soundtrack just tie in together to create this atmosphere of being alone on a foreign alien planet that just struggling to survive and just trying desperately to escape. And it's just such an amazing buildup of atmosphere. And it really helps that the gameplay itself just ties in and is actually really good as well. Now I'm gonna dive into the main portion of what I would like to talk about, and that's how Risk of Rain makes you, the player, feel good for playing the game. A lot of games do this in some aspect, whether that's instant gratification, like I want to say things like Call of Duty, or shooters, where getting that kill is extremely satisfying, and that's where you find your satisfaction from being good enough to get that kill on some other player. Or maybe it's a first-person campaign where it's beating a level, like platformers, for example. Platformers, the satisfaction comes from beating a single level and making it to the end and passing whatever tough obstacles were in your way. Risk of Rain, where that comes into play, that satisfaction, isn't so much beating a level or beating the game, which can be done under an hour, or around an hour, I should say. I mean, there definitely is satisfaction there, But the real portion where you get that satisfaction is taking your character from the beginning, when you don't have that much, really, you're not that powerful, your attacks are pretty basic, they don't really do that much. I mean, they do damage, but it's nothing amazing. And then you start picking up some items, and those items start modifying your attacks and giving you status effects that are visible. Like, every time you kill an enemy, you get this shield of spinning snowflakes of death that just kill all the enemies that are nearby, or generating an electric field that damages enemies that are within a specific distance of you, and that stacks as you kill enemies, or having an item like the Heaven Cracker, which makes your every fourth basic attack pierce enemies in a line across the screen, or a number of things. Having enemies explode after you kill them, or having all your attacks explode, or having missiles launch as you perform your basic attacks. I mean, I can go on and on about items that affect your character's basic attacks and skill set, and give something visual that makes you feel powerful. And that, honestly, that's what Risk of Rain does, and it delivers it within an hour. If you can survive until the later levels, which in and of itself is a difficult feat, so there's that satisfaction of beating difficulty, but there's also that satisfaction of taking your character to nothing and bringing it up into something powerful. Like, I picked up an item during this playthrough, which is called gasoline, that causes the ground to burst into flames occasionally when you kill an enemy. It's things like that, because all of these items just join together and make your character just one machine of death, where you can hold off a whole army of enemies. It's that makes this game so amazing and satisfying. And it does so better than a lot of other games. And the reason I say that is, take a traditional JRPG, for example. Something like Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest, and how long do you have to put into that game before you feel overpowered? Or not overpowered, but extremely powerful in that game. Most of the time, you're gonna spend at least a good 40 to 50 hours of gameplay in that game before you get to a point where you feel exceptionally powerful and can slaughter a whole army of enemies. A lot of the time, you're still confined to the same enemy format, I should say. You're still going against 4 enemies, you just don't, either they have more health or you just don't deal as much damage to them and you have to grind and level up, etc. Final Fantasy eventually makes you feel powerful when you start dealing extraordinary, just ridiculous amounts of damage, and numbers that reach into just stupidly high numbers, but it takes a while to get there. Risk of Rain not only rewards you with dealing a lot of damage, but it also throws a crap ton of enemies at you at once. So it's you against a whole army, and that is extremely satisfying when you're just either fighting a boss with a bunch of enemies in tow, or doing something along those lines with sometimes upwards of 80 enemies on screen in rare circumstances. honestly, if you have 80 enemies on screen, you're in trouble. But situations like that, and then you get out of them somehow. Maybe it's from your items. You get one good shot, and one of your items procs, and you wipe out, I don't know, a good 10, 15 enemies at once. And it's that feeling of, my character at the beginning couldn't do that. My character could probably only take one or two of those enemies. One or two of the beginning enemies, and they definitely couldn't take any of the enemies that are spawning now. And having a bunch of those different items stacked together in order to make you more powerful. That's the kind of thing that Risk of Rain just really excels at. And I honestly think that's why roguelites in general are seeing their rise in popularity as they do, is because they give a satisfying gameplay experience that really takes that feeling of progress and condenses it down into bite-sized chunks of time. It takes the beginning to end feeling of a JRPG or some other system that incorporates leveling, some sort of RPG system, and puts it down into an hour time slot. I've heard the term micro-progression kind of thrown around to explain this gameplay style, and honestly, I think that's what roguelites do really well. They take a chunk of time. Most of them can be beaten in, say, an hour, maybe 2, and take you from absolutely nothing to a weak character with a weak weapon and kind of just lame equipment, etc., and just build you up into something powerful within 1 or 2 hours. And they really give you that power spike experience when you start hitting your groove and you start getting really powerful items, and you just have a smile on your face as you watch your latest item kick in and just completely annihilate a group of enemies. That's the kind of thing that Risk of Rain does really well. And I think that's why there's the rise in popularity of roguelites. I mean, you see it in other popular game types as well. The MOBA craze is very much alive and well today. League of Legends, you see a similar thing in League of Legends, where you go from nothing from a character who has a hard time even CSing, getting farm, and then through that farm and through the various outcomes of the game, you playing well or getting kills, getting gold, buying items, you see your character's power levels just increase and increase and increase, and you level up and you get advantages, and you take a character from can barely kill minions to I can decimate their entire team. And I think there are a subset of people, myself included, that play League of Legends specifically for that experience. It's not that I don't enjoy the competitive nature of it or the other gameplay aspects. Honestly, some of the more mobile characters are tons of fun, and you can pull off some insane moves because of their kit. But it's that feeling of going from nothing to something that really just grabs you and pulls you in and makes the game fun. I'm not saying that JRPGs aren't good as a genre. I very much enjoy JRPGs. Dragon Quest IX is one of my favorites. For Dragon Quest IX for the DS. But I feel like they are better at delivering story experiences with strategic combat better than other genres. Like, I really don't think a roguelite could really do a turn-based combat system that... I mean, I guess there is Darkest Dungeon, so I'm not entirely correct in that point. But even then, Darkest Dungeon isn't what I would call a traditional roguelite. You're not controlling one specific character or party, and then once they die, you lose all your progress. There is some amount of progress that is made, even if characters die. So it's not really... It's not really the same as a lot of the other roguelites. Who knows? Someone could come out with a roguelite turn-based RPG that, along the lines of with permadeath and things like that, where your progress actually resets, and it'd be an amazing game. I honestly don't know, but I really think JRPGs are better for tailored experiences where it's mostly you're focused on wowing the player and bringing them into a pre-existing world and story. That's where they excel, is really that world, bringing them to a world and fleshing out that world is something that JRPGs do that roguelites really can't. So honestly, I think that feeling of going back to what I said earlier, that feeling of progression that roguelites do really well, that Risk of Rain does really well, that Binding of Isaac has done really well. It's that really makes the game grab you and makes the game interesting, because each gameplay you get different items, and so your character gets built differently, and you have different stories of different situations you were in and different item combinations, and you can play around with those, and so your character feels different. And that's something that Risk of Rain does really well, and that's one of the reasons why I really like Risk of Rain, is because all the items are crafted in such a way where they're unique and add something to the gameplay experience. And a lot of them are visual, which in a video game is actually really important, because it gives you something. And it gives you visual feedback so that you can just... It adds to that feeling. It adds to that really effect of feeling really powerful. So yeah, that's really the reason why I really like Risk of Rain, why it's probably one of my favorite games on Steam. It's that feeling of progression, that where you take a character from nothing to something, and just you are thrown incredibly, and you are put against incredible odds, and you feel like a one-man army. And it's honestly just, it's an amazing feeling, and it's really an amazing game. So if you haven't picked up Risk of Rain and all this sounds really interesting to you, I highly suggest you pick it up. It often goes on sale for $2.50 US dollars. And it's an amazing game. It's a really fantastic game, and the fact that it was only made by three people. I believe there were 2 developers and one guy that worked on music. I think it was one developer and one guy that basically, one graphic artist, one developer, and the guy that they hired on to do music. I don't know if they were hired on, but anyway, it's 3 people, and it's an amazing game, and I highly recommend it if any of this sounded interesting to you. So yeah, thank you for watching this video, and if you liked it, consider subscribing. Like I said earlier on in this video, if you want to watch my Huntress gameplay, I'll have a link in the description, so go on, click on that, and watch me where I explain the game a little bit more, and explain the basics of the game, and also give a commentary as I'm playing the game on kind of what I'm thinking, and just general gameplay. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.